What's going on, guys? I'm just getting the stream ready. I'm waiting for everyone to join in. And in the meantime, I have this video of the T-14 Armada in action. This is the first ever combat footage of the T-14 Armada. And this thing is just so impressive. It was able to stop Captain America with Thor's hammer. So let's just watch that again. So I'm going to get the stream ready and I'll be on in a couple of minutes here. What's going on, guys? I got some breaking news to share with you. Yeah, there's background music to this video, but I can't play it because it's probably copyrighted. But that was the first ever combat footage of the T-14 Armada. And as you could see, it was pretty impressive. Stopped Captain America's shield. It stopped Iron Man. I mean, this thing is just incredible. Um, so I'm going to jump right into the news here. We have some major breaking news that I want to share with you. So I'm going to just get right into it. So stand by. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off some of the major headlines for the last 24 hours or so. And then I'm going to share some things with you guys. LB Rules, thank you so much for that donation. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So just give me a thumbs up and let me know if my sound is good before I start talking. If you guys could do that. Yeah, I have a lot of gray t-shirts. I have lots and lots of t-shirts. So I have a lot of gray t-shirts though. I like gray. Gray's a good color. It's kind of like a neutral color. Nobody was banned. You were timed out, but you weren't banned because if you were banned, you wouldn't be able to type a comment. So I'm not sure why. I'll have to investigate that later. But my mods are experienced. They know what they're doing. Of course, sometimes they make mistakes like everybody else. So I'm going to just get started here. Kingdom Prepper, Garrison Brumbley, Ross Snyderman, Davis 08, Sebastian Montero, SC Patriot Girl, whatever films and photography, Jenin Girl. So I'm going to jump right into it here. So I'm going to start reading off some headlines and then I'll get into some more detailed stuff. But basically today, the leader of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, said that he gave the orders for the Belarus army to be on full combat readiness. And he also was claiming that there were provocations on the border every day. He was saying that there were drone flights near the border of Belarus. I'm guessing he was referring to the Ukrainian border. But this is pretty concerning that he would give orders for his army to be on full combat readiness. And right after Prigozhin goes to Belarus, he announces that he's putting his army on full combat readiness. It's a little bit suspicious to me. He also said that he also broke his silence on the whole deal with Prigozhin. And he basically said that he convinced Putin that it would be a bad idea to kill Prigozhin because it would actually make things worse in Russia, because then Prigozhin would be like a martyr, because Prigozhin has a lot of people that follow him, especially his own army. So he convinced Putin that it would be a bad idea to kill Prigozhin, that it's better to figure out some way to have like a peace with him rather than killing him, because if they killed him, it would just tear apart Russia and cause a civil war, basically, because he would become a martyr. So I'm going to play the video of what Lukashenko said in a little bit here, and then I also have a translated text of everything he said with regards to that agreement he made with Prigozhin, and it's very detailed. So 2 Wagner camps were already built in Belarus. Heavy equipment of the Wagner forces are going to be transferred to the Russian army, so all their like tanks and stuff like that. I'll just play this video in the background here of him speaking while I'm talking. So this is where he was talking about Prigozhin here. You can read the subtitles if you want as I'm reading along with my news here. The Russian government flew a plane from Moscow to Washington, D.C. today, and the Russian Foreign Ministry said it was to pick up Russian diplomats that were asked to leave the U.S. Okay, so that's what that whole plane thing was about. Everybody was wondering what that was about. It was just the Russians picking up diplomats from D.C. that were kicked out of D.C. So that's definitely not a good sign, that they're picking up diplomats and taking them out of the country. That's, not good. And this whole thing with Prigozhin has quieted down for now, but it could pick back up right away. Jenin Girl, thank you so much for that donation. I appreciate it. Jenin Girl, or Jenny Girl 2023, thank you. And LB Rules, thank you for gifting the memberships. Thank you guys so much. So let me continue on here. So let's see what else. Ukraine is going to be receiving 41, or they may receive 41 Australian F-18s. So that's pretty interesting. We'll have to wait and see more of the details here, but it looks like they may be getting 41 F-18s. And if they do get those F-18s, it would happen sooner than the F-16s. So they would be able to get those F-18s before the F-16s. So that's, huge news. I mean, F-18s are even better than F-16s. And Finland actually has a bunch of F-18s, so the Ukrainians could probably train in Finland for the time being and learn on the Finnish F-18s, and then they could fly the ones that they get. There was a big missile strike in Ukraine today in Kramatorsk, and it was right on the 1-year anniversary of the Kremenchuk Mall strike, where dozens of civilians were killed and injured. So this was today, last year, if you guys remember that big mall in Kremenchuk, where, they hit that mall with a missile. And so it's interesting that Russia would do a strike today on that. I personally think that they did that on purpose, that was basically done on purpose. I mean, the timing is just it's too much of a coincidence, in my opinion. So let me see. I'm going to keep going on with the news here. Sweden has met the requirements set by Turkey to join NATO, and this was stated by the foreign minister of Sweden, Tobias Billström. And so Sweden and Turkey are having meetings. I think they had the meetings last week, or they're going to have them this week. But they're in the process of having meetings to resolve everything. So it's looking like more than likely Sweden is probably going to get approved to join NATO, potentially in 2 weeks or whatever, 2 weeks or 3 weeks during the Vilnius summit. So that's pretty big news there. We have some news coming out of Taiwan. Taiwan reported that there were 2 Russian warships near their shore today, and the Taiwan Air Force released a statement saying that it would destroy Chinese planes and ships if they enter the 12-mile zone near the island that Taiwan considers its own space. Okay. So that's what the Taiwan Air Force said, and the Taiwan Ministry of Defense Major General Lin Wen Huang. Okay. He said if Chinese planes and Chinese ships get within the 12-mile zone near the island, then Taiwan is going to shoot them down. Okay. That's pretty, 12 miles, that's considered like your territorial waters. 12 miles out from your shoreline is considered your territorial waters. So Taiwan is saying if China flies any planes or any warships go into their territorial waters, they're going to be taken down and destroyed. Okay. So that is a huge statement from Taiwan. And then also 2 Russian warships not too far off the coast of Taiwan today. So that's pretty serious. We also have a new survey that came out from the Reagan Institute, and it found that 3/4 of Americans think it's important to the U.S. that Ukraine win the war against Russia. And this includes 86% of Democrats and 71% of Republicans. And nearly 60% support sending U.S. military aid to Ukraine. And apparently, this hasn't really changed much since November of last year. Okay, so that is huge news right there. We had some interesting flight paths last night over the Baltics. So I'm going to share that with you guys. But let's just go into Prigozhin and this whole situation with Prigozhin real quick. So if you guys were reading the subtitles here, this is Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, and so he basically says, that Prigozhin is a powerful guy and people respect him, and it makes a lot of sense not to take him out, because he could end up being a martyr and it would cause a lot of issues. So I'm going to read this off to you guys. So he says, who's Prigozhin? He's a person with a lot of authority in the armed forces. Regardless of how much some people don't want it to be the case. That's why I thought we can certainly kill him. I even said to Putin, we can kill him. It's not a problem. Maybe not on the first try, but on the second. But I said, don't do it, because later there won't be any negotiations and these guys will go for everything. We can kill them too, but thousands upon thousands of civilians will lose their lives too, as well as those who will resist Wagner. And Wagner is the most prepared formation in the army. That's why before killing them, we should think what will happen tomorrow. All right. So he's basically saying that, Wagner is the best unit in all of the Russian military. So that kind of gives you a clue as to what Russia's capabilities are. And we know that Lukashenko has a tendency of leaking things out by accident. Right before Russia invaded, he leaked out the war plan when he was showing on the map. He did a video where he had the map and he was showing the invasion routes. And now he's leaking out information that basically Wagner is the best formation in the Russian army. So what does that tell you? That tells you that Russia has no chance of repelling the counterattack, because it took Prigozhin and his forces almost a year to take one town in Ukraine. To take one town, it took almost a year for Prigozhin, and he's the best that Russia has to offer as far as ground forces go. All right, in the army, I'm not talking about Air Force or Navy. I'm talking army. Infantry, artillery. Okay, so that's an interesting insight there. But he says basically, what's going to happen tomorrow? If we kill him, then there's going to be a huge civil war. More or less, that's what he said. Civilians would die, and it would be a big mess. So that's why he convinced Putin not to do that and to set up a negotiation, which I think is smart. Jesse Anderson, thank you so much for that donation. Lee Billy gifted 10 memberships. Wow, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So, we're going to have to wait and see what happens, but the architect of the first Ukrainian counterattack, Oleksandr Syrsky, he's the general that he was the guy who planned the first counterattack where they took back Kharkiv and Kherson City. He was like the architect of that. And he released a statement last week saying that the main effort of the counterattack hasn't started yet. Okay. And I agree with that. What we're seeing now are small skirmishes. Okay. Ukraine is doing what is known as recon by force. Okay. If you don't know what recon by force is, you can look it up. It's a centuries old war tactic that involves testing your enemy's defenses by sending small units and probing, seeing how your enemy responds, what their capabilities are, where their forces are most concentrated. And that's what Ukraine has been doing the last few weeks. And everybody's saying, oh, Ukraine, the counterattack already started and Russia is repelling it. No, that's not true. The truth is that these are just reconnaissance by fire, okay? Small incursions against the front line to see what Russia's capable of. And then once they find a weakness, then they're going to commit all their forces to that weakness to create an opening, okay, to create a pocket, all right, kind of like the Battle of the Bulge. They want to find a weak spot, just like Hitler did with the Battle of the Bulge. They found a weak spot in the Allies' front line in the Black Forest, and they created a pocket. And then it was a really rough battle, but the Allies ended up winning. But that's basically what Ukraine is trying to do here. They're trying to find a pocket. They're trying to, they want to basically, find a weak spot that they can exploit. Okay. Somebody here said NYPrepper is a great guy at heart and speaks very well. Best news along with KLW is here. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say. Yeah, KLW World News definitely has great news. He's on top of everything. That guy is a machine. Rabbit says Ukraine is holding back a lot of their forces. Even if they find an opening, they are going to exploit it, but not with all of their forces. I don't think they would put all of their eggs in one basket. Yep, exactly. They're not going to put all their eggs in one basket, of course, but they're going to put a significant amount, multiple armored divisions. You're going to have combined arms divisions, tanks working with infantry, working with Bradleys, working with close air support, a Western style, attack is what they're going to do, because they've been trained by the West, so they're going to fight like the West. I'm going to continue on with some of the news here. So that's what Lukashenko said. Let me continue on with some more stuff, and I want to get through all like the hard news first, and then I'll share some of my opinions on what I think is going to happen and things like that. But as of right now, there's no new news related to the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. I haven't heard anything develop yet with that. I'm sure it's continuing to dry up as we speak. So the clock is ticking with that thing. Hopefully they can do something. I mean, the UN is saying they have a few months left before that cooling pond dries up. So, it could be a very serious situation. And, I was talking with a friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about how Putin said the other week about that sanitary zone. And I covered that. I don't know if you guys remember, but Putin said to the mill bloggers like a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, he said that we have to create a sanitary zone so that Ukraine can't strike us anymore from inside of their borders. So, what if he was talking about Zaporizhia? Because if you think about it, melting down Zaporizhia would deny Ukraine the capability of striking into Crimea from where they are now, you know? So, like right now, if Ukraine were to get ATACMS, the long range missiles for the HIMARS, or even the Storm Shadow missiles, they can target all of Crimea right now because they're pretty close. But if Russia melts down that nuclear power plant, that's going to create the sanitary zone, you know? And then Ukraine is going to have to be further away from Crimea. They're not going to be able to get as close because of the radiation. um, I mean, they have radiation resistant vehicles like the HIMARS are radiation resistant, so I suppose they could still get those in there, but they're not going to be able to get like a lot of the artillery and stuff in there because the radiation will be too high. Even if you have a radiation resistant cab, like the HIMARS, a lot of those artillery systems, the multiple launch artillery systems, are radiation resistant. The cabs are sealed for nuclear, biological, and chemical. But the problem is that the radiation could be so strong that it'll just damage the engine, and the electronics won't even work, unless they're carbureted. But the radiation could be so strong that it could even warp some of the parts inside of the engine. So that would deny access to that whole area. Drops Family Garden says they don't want to do that right now. The winds blow northeast in the summer. They would do that in the winter. Well, as far as I know, yeah, that's true. In the wintertime, the winds blow from east to west in Eastern Europe. So the winds come from Siberia and they blow across Russia into Europe, especially when there's a cold front that comes through. So, yeah, that would make sense. Now the winds blow from west to east because the winds come from the Gulf Stream, from France and Germany. They get the Gulf Stream water, and the winds come from that direction, and it blows from west to east. So, yeah, that's a great point. That's a very great point. Musi says, I really fear for Prigozhin. It appeared the people loved him. Russian leadership has to be worried. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think that this was a huge blow to Putin. It definitely makes him look vulnerable now. I know a lot of people say that, oh, this was a big chess move. This was 4D chess, and this was all planned. That they moved Prigozhin into Belarus now, and he's going to attack Ukraine. He's going to go for Lviv. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all, because you can see Prigozhin was genuinely mad. I mean, you could just see it. You could see he was genuinely mad, based on his what he was saying. And I personally believe Prigozhin really wanted to go to Moscow. I don't believe what he said. Prigozhin said yesterday that this was all part of the plan, that the plan was never to go and overthrow the government, that it was just to kind of like make a statement and scare the leadership of Russia, and kind of more like a protest than anything else. But I don't buy that. I think that based on what he was saying when I was covering it live, and some of you guys were there for that, or maybe most of you, when I was covering it live, I was reading off to you what he was posting on his Telegram. He was posting voice messages to his Telegram like every hour, and some of the things that he said, I mean, you can't make it up. You can't fake that. Okay, I mean, he was saying that we're going to liberate Russia. We're going to the end. I mean, he literally said, we're going to the end. We're going to destroy anybody in our way. I mean, that's not something you say if this is all just a big protest, and this was all just to make a statement. So I personally believe Prigozhin had the intention of going to Moscow, and I don't think he really thought through what would happen. I think he was just so, filled with rage and emotions that he didn't really think through like the ramifications. It's just like if you get angry and you punch a door in your house, you're just angry. You don't realize that, oh man, I just punched a hole in the door and now I got to fix it. You don't think about that. You're just so mad. You punch the door and you make a hole in it. And then later on, you're like, oh crap, what did I do? And I think that was the situation here with Prigozhin. I think that he was just so consumed with anger and frustration that I think he planned it out, but I don't think he, in a situation like that, you could think that everything is going to go according to plan and you think you're going to respond a certain way, but then once you get there, it all starts to settle in. The seriousness of the situation starts to settle in, and you feel that weight on your shoulders. And no matter how much planning you had, he could have been planning it for months, but until you're actually there and you're at that point where you're at the Rubicon and you're standing there and you're right outside of Moscow, that's when reality really sets in and the weight is on your shoulder. And at that point, I just think that he lost the nerve, and he probably just felt like, a lot of people are going to die, Russians, Wagners, and it's going to tear the country apart. And I think he just felt like it wasn't worth it for whatever reason. Maybe he thinks that Putin is just going to collapse on his own. I personally believe that Prigozhin, I mean, he knows the real situation on the front line, because he fought against the Ukrainians for a year. Okay, so he was at the front line almost every day, and being briefed regularly. I mean, he knew the capabilities of the Ukrainians, and he was warning the Russian army for months and months and months, saying that the Russian army underestimates Ukraine, that the Russian army is not prepared. And so he knows the reality of the situation, and he may already feel like Russia is going to lose the war. And so he feels like maybe he doesn't have to overthrow Putin, because he knows that the government is just going to eventually collapse on its own based on what he's seeing with the war and how the war is going. He may feel like, okay, maybe I don't have to do this. It's going to cause a lot of bloodshed, and I may not have to do this because Russia's going to collapse anyway because the war is going so badly, because he's at the front line. Putin is not on the front line. Sergei Shoigu, he's not on the front line. They never visit the front line. They go there like once a year, okay? And they don't even get close to the front line. So they're living in a different world than Prigozhin was. And so that's what I personally think. I think that Prigozhin knows that Russia is basically doomed, and there's no point in shedding blood when Russia's going to collapse on its own anyway. Or maybe not Russia's going to collapse, but maybe the Putin government is going to collapse eventually, and he felt like, I don't need to do this. Or maybe he feels like he's going to wait until there's a better opportunity when the Russian government is weaker, and then it'll be less bloodshed. Maybe that's what it is. But that's just my opinion. That's what I think. I could be wrong. That's what I think. That's not fact. That's just my thoughts. Okay. So let me just share some other information here. Russia conducts tactical fighter jet drills over the Baltic Sea. So this is pretty concerning, and this comes just after NATO announced that they're going to be moving 4,000 German troops to Lithuania permanently. And then they also announced that NATO is changing the air policing mission in the Baltics to a combat mission. And so what that means is that they're still going to be doing the air policing over the Baltics, but they're now going to be integrated into the defense plans of the Baltics. So if something were to happen, those fighter jets could immediately engage hostile forces like from Belarus or whatever, or Russia. So this is very concerning. Okay. And this is dated today. All right. This is coming from Reuters. Russia's defense ministry said early on Tuesday that it was conducting tactical fighter jet exercises over the Baltic Sea with the main goal of testing readiness to perform combat and special task operations. The crews of the Sukhoi 27 fighter jets of the Baltic Fleet fired from airborne weapons at cruise missiles and mock enemy aircraft, the ministry said on the Telegram messaging app. The main goal of the exercise is to test the readiness of the flight crew to perform combat and special tasks as intended. The ministry said that in addition to improving skills, the fighter jet crews are on round-the-clock combat duty guarding the airspace of Russia's Kaliningrad exclave. Okay, so these fighter jets were doing exercises, practicing firing at mock enemy aircraft and cruise missiles, because fighter jets can be used to shoot down cruise missiles. That's one of the few ways that you can shoot down a cruise missile, is to use a fighter jet, because the fighter jets can fly, faster than a cruise missile, and they can scan it better. They can scan an area better because of the way the radars are set up on a fighter jet. They can scan an area with their radars, and they can pick up incoming cruise missiles and then shoot them down with their anti-air missiles or their air-to-air missiles. Because a cruise missile basically flies as fast as like a passenger jet. They fly like 500 miles an hour. Most fighter jets can fly twice that speed, or at least as fast as that. So this is pretty concerning, and it comes again. It's the same time as NATO announced that they are switching the Baltic air policing mission to a combat mission. So that's pretty serious, guys. Pretty serious. Debbie is saying, when a real emergency happens, what will you call it? I call it an emergency alert. If you go back over the weekend when Prigozhin was going after Moscow, I called it an emergency alert, okay? So emergency alert is if something is imminently happening, like Prigozhin going after Moscow. That was an emergency alert. A red alert means that there's some important news, but it's not like an imminent threat like right now or tonight or something. It's something building up, but it's not immediate. Okay, so that's the difference between red alert and emergency alert. I hope that makes sense. So this is like urgent news, but it's not like imminent, like something's going to happen tonight, like right now. Here we have some more information. Taiwan says it spots 2 Russian warships off its east coast. This was posted by Reuters 2 hours ago. Taiwan, all right? 2 Russian warships off of its east coast. Taiwan spotted 2 Russian warships off its eastern coast on Tuesday and sent its own aircraft and ships to keep watch, the island's defense ministry said. In a statement late on Tuesday, the ministry said the 2 frigates sailed in a northerly direction off Taiwan's east coast and then departed from our response zone in a southeasterly direction off the port city of Suao, which is home to a major Taiwanese naval base. Taiwan's military sent aircraft and ships to keep watch and activated shore-based missile systems, it added, without providing further details. Russia's Interfax news agency reported on Tuesday that a detachment of ships of the Russian Pacific Fleet had entered the southern parts of the Philippine Sea to perform tasks as part of a long-range sea passage. Taiwan has joined the United States and its allies in enacting wide-ranging sanctions against Russia following its invasion of Ukraine. So that's pretty interesting, guys. Okay, it was serious enough that they dispatched fighter jets and activated their shore defense missiles. Okay, pretty serious, guys. Pretty serious. Okay. Um, so this could have been Russia just testing Taiwan to see what Taiwan would do. I mean, we know that we know that Russia and China are allies, and it's possible that if something were to happen with Taiwan, that Russia would come to the aid of China because Russia has a big navy. So it's very possible that they have some kind of agreement, that they would help China. Jesse Anderson, thank you for the donation. Do you think Ukraine will stop after they take back their country, or will they push into Russia? Yeah, I don't think they're going to push into Russia. I doubt it. I highly doubt it, because if they were to do that, then they would get no support from the West. So that's definitely not likely at all. It depends on your definition of what Russia is. If you consider Crimea part of Russia, then yeah, they're definitely going to go after Crimea. I think they're going to most likely. I'm almost 90%. I'm almost 100% certain that Ukraine is going to try to take back Crimea. Whether they try to do it this year or next year or the year after remains to be seen. But I'm almost 100% certain that they're going to go for Crimea. Okay. But no, beyond Crimea, they're not going to go any further than that, because they're not going to get Western support. The West is not going to want to give them weapons because they're going to be afraid of, an escalation or whatever, a nuclear war. So hopefully that answers your question. Sean Swanson, what do you think will happen with Wagner groups in other countries? I think that the Wagner groups in other countries are going to continue to function the way that they were. There's no talk of Prigozhin being banned by Russia from operating, his business. So I think they're going to continue to function, unless Prigozhin changes their deployment and for whatever reason he pulls them back somewhere, But Prigozhin is a billionaire. He's a billionaire. He's very wealthy. He's got a lot of resources. He's got a lot of money. I was watching what Putin was saying. He had another speech, and he was reading off how much money Russia paid Wagner for all their services, and he said that it was like, I don't know how many trillions of rubles, and I calculated it, and it was like $10 billion. The Russian government paid Wagner like $10 billion. And I don't know if that was entirely throughout, all the years that they've been a contractor, or if that was just like in the last 2 years. But Prigozhin's definitely a billionaire. If not, he's almost a billionaire. So he's got a lot of resources, and that's why I don't see him staying in Belarus for a very long time. Just because if you're Prigozhin, there's nothing interesting for you in Belarus. Why would you want to go, to Belarus and retire in Belarus? It's like the worst place to retire. Who the hell would want to retire in Belarus? It's just not an interesting place, especially if you're used to the lifestyle that Prigozhin is, He's not going to want to stay there for long. Prigozhin has his finger in gold and diamond mines in Africa as well. Yeah. So not only is he making tons of money, he made tons of money from the Russian government, but he also has various gold and diamond mines in Africa. He's also got contracts with African countries. So yeah, he's got a ton of money. He's got a ton of resources. I could potentially see him going to like an African country and starting business there. He said for a while that he was going to go to Africa. He may even go to like one of these African countries and just spend all his time over there, or at least for the next few years. Who knows? So let me continue on with the news here. Here we have a video showing this is apparently Serbian forces. I can't confirm 100% if these are Kosovo, because they have Humvees. I didn't know that Serbia has Humvees, but then somebody said that Serbia has been purchasing Humvees. So this was on the border of Kosovo and Serbia. Okay, look at all these armored vehicles here. And then yesterday, Kosovo deployed some of their police forces to the Serbian minority areas of Kosovo. So that area is still pretty tense. There's a lot of tension there. I can't confirm if these are Serbian or Kosovo. I thought maybe they would be Kosovo, but somebody said that Serbia bought Humvees. I can't confirm that 100% though. I guess if we look at maybe some of the decals on the vehicles, we might be able to find out. Like this looks like Cyrillic, so it might be Serbian, but pretty interesting. Let me see, what else do I have here. We had a lot of interesting flight paths. We had a few interesting ones last night. So we had a Constant Phoenix nuke sniffer plane that was in the air last night. So these planes can detect radionuclides in the atmosphere. And it took off from Offutt Air Base, which is home of Stratcom. And it did this big loop here over Tennessee, Alabama, and Mississippi. And then it came back and landed. But it was up in the air for a couple hours, as you can see. You know, it was in the air for a few hours. This was late last night, earlier this morning. So pretty interesting. I wonder if this is related to the nuclear power plant, if they're trying to detect if there's any radiation leakage coming from the nuclear power plant. So this is pretty interesting, guys, and we got to keep an eye on that power plant. You know, that thing could blow any day now. We also had this C-130 Commando. This is a plane that is operated by the U.S. SOCOM, Special Operations Command. And this is basically just a C-130 that's, outfitted for special operations missions. It can do a variety of things like refueling Black Hawks and, dropping troops off. Like they can, parachute out of this plane. And it was doing loops here right near the border of Belarus. Okay, so this is Latvia. And it was doing loops like for a couple of hours here. All right, so you have Lithuania here, Latvia, and then Belarus. I mean, literally, you see this little town here, Braslaw? Braslaw, that's like right on the border of Belarus and Latvia. And this plane was flying like probably less than 5 miles from the Belarus border. It was there all night. Maybe a little further, maybe like 10 miles, 15 miles, but that's very close for an aircraft. So that's pretty interesting. And if that's not interesting enough, there was also an AWACS plane in the same area here near the border of Belarus. I don't know if they were doing some kind of an exercise, practicing like, responding to an attack from Belarus. And so they were getting these planes in the air, practicing, maybe parajumping or, refueling or whatever. And then the AWACS would be supporting them, giving them information on where the enemy forces are. Here's an aerial refueler. I think it was refueling that AWACS plane. This is a Netherlands Airbus A330. And it was in the same area of Latvia doing these loops here. And then let me show you now the AWACS plane that was in the air also in the same area. You see this? This AWACS plane was just doing perfect circles here in Latvia, right near the border of Russia and Belarus. And then here in northeastern Poland, they were also flying, doing loops here as well. Okay, so NATO's continuing to monitor this area, northeastern Poland and the Baltics. This is a very vulnerable area, and with Lukashenko putting his army on high alert, that's pretty concerning. So, uh, and then there was also a Black Hawk helicopter in this same area that was flying in this same area of Latvia. There was a Black Hawk as well. Okay, at the same time as the other ones. So that's pretty interesting. And then here we had a bunch of strato tankers that were up in the air over the UK. Check this out. Several strato tankers heading out into the North Sea, North Atlantic area. Very interesting. Flying, basically one behind another. Looks like they all took off from Mildenhall. Mildenhall is like one of the most important air bases in the UK. That's where they keep a lot of the really critical planes there, like the NATO bombers, the B2s and things like that, B1s. They all go to Mildenhall. So let me see if I have any other news here. So that's kind of most of the breaking news that I wanted to share with you guys. And let me just read this article to you. This is not article, it's a translation. So this is a translation of what the Belarus president Lukashenko was saying about his interactions with Prigozhin. So I'm going to read this off. It's pretty long. It's a couple of pages, so it might take a little bit, but we're going to go through it together because it's pretty interesting. But we just have to make sure that we're getting prepared as best as we can. I just uploaded a video earlier today on bugging out during a nuclear war. Should you bug out during a nuclear war? I definitely recommend you watch that. You definitely should watch that because a lot of people think that they're gonna bug out during a nuclear war, and it's just not realistic. If you try to bug out during a nuclear war, you're not gonna make it. Unless you're far away from a nuclear target, But check my video out. I explain more in detail. So I'm going to read to you what the president of Belarus said about this whole situation. So here we go. And in this regard, when unfolding, as President Putin called it, this turmoil in Russia, somehow everyone was sitting under a broom. Matvinenko turned out to be courageous. Volodin, the patriarch, a couple of people. That's all. After a fight, we can wave our hands. Oh, how we can and advise. Whack, whack, whack. Listen. Well, there is someone to whack, especially you know where. There is someone to arrest where it is needed. This prompted me to say a few words about the situation that developed on Friday and Saturday because, as you know, I was completely immersed in these events. So that you understand and feel what happened and what could happen, I would like you to know and understand exactly what was and what could be. So Friday, we had such a happy day. We were all preparing to celebrate the Day of Graduates. Naturally, I was decently busy with these issues. Yes, and somehow, frankly, receiving rare information about what is happening in Russia and Rostov in the south, I somehow did not pay much attention. The war is going on. You never know what is happening there. But by Saturday morning at 8 a.m., I was already receiving alarming information about the situation in Russia. Someone there tells me what they write in these Telegram channels, messengers through the FSB and our State Security Committee, General Turtel. They report to me President Putin wants to contact, please. We agreed at 10:30 that we would talk at any time convenient for him. When he spoke at 10, he called at 10:10 and informed me in the most detailed way about the situation that is happening in Russia. I asked Putin several questions, including about countering this and realizing that the situation is complicated. I will not specify this part of the conversation. The most dangerous thing, as I understand it, is not what it was like, the situation, but how it could develop and its consequences. A decision was made to whack him. That means, take him out. I suggested Putin not to hurry. Let's talk with Prigozhin, with his commanders, to which he told me, listen, Sasha, it's useless. He doesn't even pick up the phone. He doesn't want to talk to anyone. I ask, where is he? In Rostov. I say, good. A bad peace is better than any war. I do not rush. I will try to contact him. He once again says it's useless. I say, okay, wait. We talked somewhere, probably for half an hour. Then he informed me that he was at the front. I remember his words, but at the front, oddly enough, it's better than it ever was. I say, you see, not everything is so sad. At 11 o'clock, I had to find these phones. I say, how can we contact him? Give me the phone. He says, most likely the FSB has a phone. So this is what Putin said. So he asked Putin, how can I contact him? And then Putin said that the FSB has a phone. We clarified by the middle of the day, we installed as many as 3 channels through which we can talk with Rostov. All right, so they set up 3 ways to communicate with Prigozhin. In the middle of the day, we were already conducting the 3rd, 4th round of negotiations through this channel. There were intermediaries in my house in a country residence who carried out this connection for us. In this regard, I must especially thank General Yevkarov. We were lucky the friend turned out to be Ivan Stanislavovich. You studied together according to my information. I must say that this general played a very important role. For information, I'll say this is the one who, remember, went to the airfield in Serbia with a battalion. Remember, there was such a breakthrough. He led this battalion. True, all this later, as always happens through betrayal or something, did not develop. Even the Russian leadership was very shy about talking, blah, blah, blah. So he basically just thanks the Deputy Defense Minister, Yevkarov, and some other guy here, some Serbian guy that was involved in Serbia, Ivan Stanislavovich, basically thanking him for acting as an intermediary. I say this in detail to the fact that after the fight, they began to wave their hands that both one and the second participated in the negotiations. Let's see. About the first conversation with Prigozhin. Here we go. At 11 o'clock, Prigozhin immediately picked up the phone. That is, Yevkarov called him, gave him the phone. Here, the president of Belarus is calling. Will you talk? So that Yevkarov, the guy that deputy defense minister of Russia, gave the phone to Prigozhin, and Prigozhin spoke with the Belarus president. We talked for the first round of 30 minutes in a swear language exclusively. There were 10 times more swear words than normal vocabulary. He, of course, apologized and began to tell me with obscene words. And I think why go to him to start these negotiations, so to speak? Guys from the front, they saw thousands of their dead children. The guys are very offended, especially the commanders. And as I understand it, they greatly influenced on Prigozhin himself. Yes, he is such, a heroic guy, but he was pressured and influenced by those who led the assault squads and saw these deaths. And in this situation, having jumped out from there to Rostov in such a half-mad state, I am conducting this dialogue with him. So he's saying that Prigozhin is mad himself, but also Prigozhin's commanders were mad as well. And so Prigozhin was also under pressure from his own commanders to do something. Otherwise, Prigozhin would lose the support of his own commanders. So it's pretty interesting stuff here. Used more curse words than regular. Yeah, it's pretty funny, right? It's pretty funny. I'm going to continue reading here. I say, what do you want? Let them give me Shoigu and Gerasimov, and I need to meet with Putin. So that's what Prigozhin said. Prigozhin said, give me Shoigu and Gerasimov, and I need to meet with Putin. And then Lukashenko says, no one will give you either Shoigu or Gerasimov, especially in this situation. You know Putin as much as I do. Secondly, he will not only meet with you, he will not talk on the phone due to this situation. He is silent. So basically, he said that Putin wouldn't meet with Prigozhin and he wouldn't even talk on the phone with Prigozhin. So Putin was unwilling to even talk with Prigozhin on the phone. And we've seen that before with Putin, how he wouldn't even talk to Zelensky. You know, that's kind of a way of like minimizing someone by just totally ignoring them. It basically like minimizes them. It shows that you have no respect and that you're just totally not interested. So that's pretty interesting there that Putin wasn't even willing to talk with Prigozhin. So I'm going to keep reading here. It took me a long time to convince him, and in the end, he said, you know, you can do whatever you want, but don't be offended by me. The brigade is prepared to transfer to Moscow, and as in 1941, we will defend Moscow because this situation is not only in Russia. This is not only because it is our fatherland, but because, God forbid, this turmoil would go all over Russia, and the next ones were us. So that's pretty interesting there. I guess that's what Prigozhin said. He also yelled at Lukashenko and said, "We want justice. We'll go to Moscow." And then Lukashenko said, "Halfway, you'll be crushed like a bug." That's what Lukashenko said to Prigozhin, that he's going to get crushed like a bug if he goes to Moscow. So pretty interesting there. Let's see what else. So then he says, who is Prigozhin? He is a very authoritative person today in the armed forces, no matter how much someone would like it. Therefore, I thought we can kill. I said to Putin, we can kill for the second day. I say, don't do this, because then there will be no negotiations. These guys who know how to stand up for each other, who fought there and in Africa, Asia, Latin America, they will do anything. We can also kill, but thousands of civilians and those who resist the Wagnerists will die, and this is the most trained unit in the army. Who will argue with this? My military also understand this, and we do not have such people in Belarus. These are people who went through more than one war in different places. Okay, so he's saying that the Wagnerists, the Wagnerites, you know, they're very well trained and they fought in many wars, and that, you know, Belarus doesn't have any units that could fight against them. And then he was also saying that it would tear up the country. So we're almost done here. Let's see. What else does he say here? So this is what Prigozhin said to Lukashenko. He said, let's go to Moscow. We need justice. We fought honestly. Do you, Alexander Grigorovich, know how we fought? And then he says, I know, but competition between the army, as he said, and our unit, unhealthy competition and interpersonal conflict between famous people escalated. So Prigozhin saying that a conflict broke out, you know, between the Ministry of Defense of Russia and Prigozhin. Let's see what else. So I don't know if I'm going to keep reading on. It's kind of confusing the way this is translated. Some interesting little nuggets here, though. Let's see. I talked for the second or third time. I warned him. I already see that he is ready to back down, but I warn him no bloodshed. As soon as you deliberately, inadvertently kill at least one person, especially a civilian, that's it. There will be no negotiations with you, and I won't talk to you. He swore to me. He says, have no such goal, and I swear to you that I won't. So Lukashenko saying that as soon as one civilian gets killed, that there's going to be no negotiations. And then Prigozhin said that he's not planning to do that. Negotiations went on throughout the day, 6 or 7 rounds of negotiations. So that's a lot of negotiations there. And then I guess it says here Prigozhin called him back. And when he called him back, he said, I will not demand from the president that he give up Shoigu and Gerasimov, and I will not even ask for a meeting. So Prigozhin basically just gave in to Belarus and Russia. So, basically he just surrendered. That's all he did. He just surrendered. Doesn't look like he maybe got anything at all in return. Sean Swanson says, thank you so much for your time and work and correspondence. No problem. Thanks for watching. Island Girl, thank you for the donation. Nyquist today on the John Moore Show at around 26 minutes, 50 seconds says NATO has intel that on July 11th at the Vilnius summit, Russia plans on using nukes under the guise of Prigozhin's rebels capturing warheads. Wow. Yeah, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. Wow, I got to check that out. That was from Nyquist, J.R. Nyquist. Yeah, he probably did get a fat check. I'm sure he did get a fat check, Prigozhin. So good night, Kinkoi. Thanks for moderating. How's it going, Tiffany Hartman? I hope you're doing well. K. Paul, great to see you in here. I didn't see you earlier. How's it going, K. Paul? So let's just continue on here and see if there's anything else that's interesting here. Let's see. Let's see here. The last argument was when, at some time after the first negotiations, he said, let me gather the commanders and consult. I say, of course, you consult with them so that you will not be accused later. At 11, we talked, and at 5 o'clock in the evening, he called me and said, Alexander, I accept all your conditions, but what should I do? And then I guess, so he's asking what should he do, like tactically. I guess he's afraid that even if he accepts those conditions, that the Russian army is going to attack them even after accepting the conditions. And then Lukashenko said, they won't start. I guarantee you, I'll take it upon myself. We are in contact with the leadership of Russia, the FSB, and Bortnikov. Bortnikov is the general. So it's interesting. Putin had no involvement in this negotiation process. It was literally just Lukashenko and Prigozhin. Putin was not involved at all. So that's pretty interesting. It was literally Lukashenko that did the whole thing. So by the evening, we came to the end of negotiations. I was in a hurry because 200 kilometers from Moscow, a line of defense had already been built. Everything was assembled. Putin told me this in the evening, as during the war years, and cadets and the police were in reserve, 1,500. That is, they gathered decently both in the Kremlin and near the Kremlin. It was, I think, about 10,000 defenders, and I was afraid that if the Wagnerites collided with them on this line, blood will be shed, and then that's it. So Lukashenko said that they had assembled about 10,000 Russian military and police reserves and stuff, and they were setting up outside of Moscow. Um, so that's pretty interesting. That's some interesting insight there. Pretty crazy. Um, so that's pretty much all the breaking news for today. I don't have anything else. I'm going to continue to monitor the situation, and I'll definitely update you guys as things go on. Rip curl readiness, what's going on? That is interesting, Greg. Why do you think Putin had no part in it? I think for Putin, it's just a pride thing, just like how Putin doesn't want to negotiate with Zelensky. He feels like Prigozhin basically stabbed him in the back, so he feels like he doesn't want to, talk with him. It's kind of like, you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend and they cheat on you. You don't feel like talking to them anymore. I think that's what it is. I think it's kind of like a sign of, like, it's like disrespect. It's like uh, the same reason that Putin doesn't want to directly speak with Zelensky, because he feels like if he directly talks with Zelensky, it legitimizes Zelensky and makes Zelensky look like he's important enough to speak with Putin. You know what I'm saying? So by completely ignoring Zelensky, it kind of, in the view of Russian people, it minimizes Zelensky. It's kind of like if Osama bin Laden wanted to have a conversation with Biden, you think Biden would have? I mean, they would never do that. You know what I'm saying? They want to keep that level of separation to kind of minimize that person so they don't look as important. That's what I think it is. I think it's just psychological. Uh, Chandler is asking, what is your opinion on NATO deploying to Ukraine to prevent the nuclear power plant from detonating? Why just wait for the plant to go off, then radiating NATO countries? Yeah, it's really strange why they would wait. I don't think they should wait. I think they should just do something now to prevent it. The United Nations is not really doing anything at all, which is not good. TM Cole says, as always, we appreciate your work. Thank you, TM Cole. I appreciate that. I see what you're saying, Rip Curl. Yeah, I'm glad you do. It just kind of like minimizes him. It's like just it keeps Prigozhin in a certain category of like, someone who's not important enough to speak with Putin. And it minimizes his importance. That's what I think it is. Robert says Putin would have crushed them, and things would be a lot worse. I don't think Putin would have crushed them. No, I don't think he would have crushed them. That's BS. Putin was scared. He flew out to St. Petersburg immediately, and so did Medvedev. They both fled from. They both immediately fled from Moscow. And also Belarus, the leader of Belarus, his family was evacuated to Turkey. So yeah, they were crapping in their pants. Putin was scared because the Wagnerites are very well armed, very well trained, and very experienced, and they would rip through any of the Russian army that would be deployed there, because the Russian army deployed there they don't have any combat experience, most of them. You're dealing with guys that were fighting against Ukraine for months and various war-torn countries around the world, and you have the Russian army, which mostly is green, the ones that they would deploy to protect Moscow. So they would rip through them all like hot knife through butter. So I don't believe that. I personally think that Prigozhin probably could have easily taken Moscow. And I think after that, that's when Putin would maybe do something drastic, like launch nukes at NATO or something. But I think Wagner would have been able to take Moscow, because I also think that a lot of the Russian army was starting to defect and join the Wagnerites. There was video footage of hundreds of Russian army troops that surrendered and joined the Wagnerites. You know, and you saw the reception. A lot of people in Russia were cheering for Prigozhin because, for whatever reason, they like him better than Putin. So I think society probably could have even went behind Prigozhin rather than Putin, and that makes a big difference. If you have society on your side, if you're doing a rebellion and society is on your side, it's a lot different than if all of Russia was against Prigozhin, then of course it would fail. But that wasn't the case. A lot of people were giving the Wagnerites, food and water. In Rostov, there was videos of them giving snacks to the soldiers. So I don't think it would be that cut and dry. Oh, master chess player Putin playing 4D chess would immediately crush Wagner. That's just like pure propaganda. That's pure propaganda and BS. Putin was clearly scared. He flew out of Moscow immediately. So did Medvedev. Big talker Medvedev, running his mouth all the time, was the first one to fly out of Moscow like a scared puppy dog. He was the first one to flee. So yeah, I think the situation would have been a lot more complicated, and I'm sure there would be some serious fighting going on. But I think Wagner would have been able to hold Moscow because, they were able to take Bakhmut after a year of fighting against Ukraine, and the Ukrainian army is much more well equipped than the Russian army and better trained and everything. And they were able to hold on to that little piece of Bakhmut for how long? So yeah, they could easily get Moscow and then just hold it as long as possible, and it would cause a civil war. Russia would implode, and things would get really interesting or really crazy. Robert Lacko, thank you so much for that donation. I really appreciate that. Earth Angel, I hope you're doing well. Putin in his pants. Yeah, exactly. He was Putin. Putin was pooping in his pants. He was pooping in his pants. He was begging Lukashenko to do something, So this makes Putin he's a wounded dog now. He's a wounded bear. And wounded bears are the most dangerous animals. This whole situation makes Putin look really weak and really ineffective. And then the war not going so well, it's not looking good for Putin long term. So he's going to have to do something drastic now to regain his reputation and regain his power, consolidate his power. I think despite his flaws, Prigozhin is a warrior. Yeah, I think Prigozhin, he definitely fights with honor compared to Putin. I think the situation with Prigozhin is a lot more complicated. I think he's a lot more of a complicated person than Putin is. So. It's just a crazy situation. I think a Putin in a corner is not a Putin that you want. Yeah, of course, you don't want to put Putin in a corner, but that's got nothing to do with it. There was somebody here saying that Russia would have crushed Wagner if they went to Moscow, and I was saying no, they wouldn't have crushed Wagner. It would have been a long, drawn-out fight. it would take them months, if not years, to evict Wagner from the capital of Russia, in my opinion, because Wagner was getting a lot of support from the Russian people. So I don't think it's that cut and dry, like, oh yeah, the Russian troops are just gonna kick them out like they're nobody. Yeah, no, that wouldn't happen. Um, but yeah, of course, that's what I was saying. Of course, if Putin is in a corner, then he's very dangerous. Nobody's arguing there. That's what I was just saying. But I'm just saying that I don't think if Wagner actually went to Moscow, I don't think that the Russian army would have been able to take them out of Moscow anytime soon. And then that's when I think Putin would just launch the nukes in that case. Um, yeah, they are pretty crazy over there in Russia. Yeah, I know. They do all sound nuts. Yeah, who knows? It's all just our opinions. Exactly. Yeah, we don't know. I'm sharing my opinions. People are sharing theirs. Um, so yeah, I agree. We just don't know who's responsible and how this could play out for sure. Um, so we're gonna have to wait and see. But it is very concerning that Belarus put their troops on high alert, and all this NATO activity in the Baltics is very concerning. I mean, maybe some of that has to do with the NATO summit that's coming up because it's going to be in Lithuania. So obviously they want to have some security there, so Russia doesn't just launch a strike on Vilnius and take out all the NATO leaders in one shot. So obviously they want to have some security, but this is not just basic security preparations. They're changing the air policing mission to a combat mission in the Baltics, and so it's pretty concerning. So it's all the vodka and cold weather. That's funny. Um, so I think that's pretty much it, guys. Unless you have any questions for me, I think I'm gonna wind down the stream. I streamed so much over the weekend, so I kind of want to cut it a little shorter tonight so I can catch up on some things that I have to do. Um, Robert says it's nice what you do, brother. We all appreciate it. No problem. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all the info. No problem. Hope and Healing says I just got here. Can I get a brief update of what I missed? If you go to the beginning of the stream, when the stream is over, it automatically saves it. So just watch like the first 20 to 30 minutes. I go through all the major news. So you know, Angela's asking, "What's my favorite wrestler?" What's going on, Duramax? Good night, TM Cole. Any updates on ZNPP? Okay, yeah, my favorite wrestler. I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, there's so many interesting ones. I haven't watched wrestling in many years, but like when I was a kid, I used to like Razor Ramon. You remember Razor Ramon? And uh, all the other ones. Bret the Hitman Hart, he was cool. Who else? Obviously Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant. Um, those guys were awesome. That was like the classic era. And then later on, like you had all those other guys. The Rock, Stone Cold. All those other guys were pretty cool as well. Pretty entertaining to watch. So yeah, I used to watch a lot of wrestling when I was a kid. It was fun. Um, Mark Henry's pretty cool, just because I'm a former power lifter, and Mark Henry's a former power lifter, so Mark Henry's cool. Undertaker's very cool. Um, Updates on the ZNPP. I don't have any updates on the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant at the moment. It's just continuing to dry up, so we'll have to wait and see. So let me just play this. This video is funny though. The one that I played at the beginning. Let's watch that again. This is hilarious. This is the T-14 Armada in action right here. Look how it takes out an SR-71 Blackbird. Absolutely insane. Look at this. Boom. Just collides with that supersonic plane in midair. And then it uses a laser to take out like 20 Abrams tanks in one shot. It's probably one of the funniest videos I've seen of this whole war so far. This is great. They did a really good job. And look, he turns his cannon into a helicopter. It's so freaking funny. Takes out a F-22. Oh man, this is so funny. He's flying with the cannon. Takes out the whole battleship, aircraft carrier. Dodges an entire squadron of F-35s like it's nothing. And then he takes out Captain America with his shield and with Thor's hammer. Look, Captain America with Thor's hammer is no match for the T-14 Armada. Check it out. Look at his shield, just bounces right off of the tank like it's nothing. Boom. Look. Just no match for the T-14. Even Iron Man is no match. Look, he turns the fuel tanks into rocket boosters. Check this out. Wow, that is just so impressive. Absolutely insane. Goes supersonic. Did you see that? He went supersonic there. Broke the sound barrier. Check that out. Just knocks Iron Man into the water. Cuts an entire submarine in half with his laser. Look at that. Wow. Absolutely insane. Yeah, we don't want to mess with the T-14, that's for sure. It even absorbs an entire nuclear warhead. Check this out. Look, it survives an entire nuclear warhead, and then it goes into space and blows up the satellite that sent out the info to launch it. Oh man, this is probably the funniest thing so far I've seen. Do I have the funny video of Putler looking through the binoculars at Prigozhin? Oh yeah, I made that video. Yeah, I still have it. Yeah, I gotta. That was a good one too. Yeah, this video is just so funny. Um, they should do a part two where they take on the whole Avengers, like the Hulk and and then T-14 versus Superman. That would be a good one too. T-14 versus Superman. Oh man. I think the funniest part was when they put Captain America and Iron Man in here. I think that was the funniest part. Oh my gosh. It's hilarious. So classic. All the Putin fanboys. They just think that all of Russia's military equipment is just like indestructible. Like the T-14 had, like they were saying that the T-14 had an active protection system, and it could like shoot down like helicopters and all kinds of stuff. They were just really really pumping it up like it was like some kind of in like futuristic tank that NATO would not be able to defeat. And after this whole war, a year and a half of this whole war, we haven't seen a single T-14. Isn't that funny? I think that's hilarious. So it's just a propaganda. It's a fake tank. They'd probably only built a few of them, and it probably never really worked. Because if they really had them, they would put them into Ukraine, wouldn't they? I mean, even a couple of them, I'm sure they would want to test them and see how they work, right? I'm sure they would want to deploy a few to the front lines and see how effective they are, but they haven't even deployed a few, not even a single T-14 to the front line at all. So that tells you that it's all lies and BS. And that's why, like, I used to believe like the Poseidon torpedo that everybody talks about. I used to believe that it was a real, um, weapon, but now I don't believe it. I think the Poseidon torpedo is probably the same thing as the T-14. It's all a fake propaganda weapon, designed to scare the West and inflate Russia into something it's not. Kind of like how when a cat gets scared, it puffs up its chest to make itself look big. It's still a cat, but when it puffs itself up, it looks a lot bigger, doesn't it? But it's still a tiny little cat, you know. Um, so I'm sure I probably agitated a few people, uh, but it is what it is. Armada 2 Judgment Day. That's funny. I need to make a video with audio from the theme song Degeneration X wrestling group Triple H. Oh yeah, Degeneration X. They were really cool. Yeah, those guys were cool. Yeah, Shawn Michaels, sure. What's the link to the T-14? I can send it to you. I guess I can try to find it. It's on Twitter. If you just type in, you go onto Twitter and you just search like T-14 first combat footage, it'll show up. Like just search T-14 first combat footage, and it'll show up. I might even post this to my channel here. I might even just post this video by itself. Um, yeah, I might play the video. Yeah. Oh, you mean the video of Prigozhin with Putin? Yeah, I can play that. Yeah, let me find that. That was a good one. I got to find that. Hold on. Yeah, Prigozhin's a funny character. He's a funny character. You see, where is that? I'll play that for you. Yeah, it's a funny one. This was the one that I made. Tried to make it funny. Yeah, that was funny when he did that whole rant. That was hilarious. So I think I'm going to wind it down, and I'll do another update tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'll go live or if I'll do a video. I'm not sure yet. John Crarin says, was that a ninja tank? How is it flying UFO technology? That's the T-14 Armada, the Russian super tank. Wagner group marching to Moscow and Rostov would be cool clips for the DX theme. Yeah, that would be cool. I wouldn't be able to upload it here because it would get copyrighted for the DX theme, you know. But I was going to clip together like a compilation of all the all the events that transpired. I was going to like clip together like a 10 or 20-minute video as, from when the whole thing started, like all the different footage. I was going to clip it together. I was thinking of doing that. I'm actually working on it right now. I just haven't finished it. Do I think they will kill Prigozhin? I originally thought that they would kill Prigozhin, but based on what Lukashenko said, I don't think they will, because if they kill Prigozhin, it's going to make a martyr out of him. And that's definitely not something that that Putin wants to do, because if they make a martyr out of him, then all the Wagnerites are going to go crazy. And then all the people that support him, it's just going to be a bad situation for Putin. So I don't think they're going to take him out. No, because it's gonna cause the civil war if they take out Prigozhin, because Prigozhin's like a hero in Russia. He was the guy that took Bakhmut from Ukraine, and he also took Soledar. So people in Russia respect Prigozhin. They have a lot of respect for him, and so if Putin takes him out, it's going to be obvious to everybody, So, and then there's gonna be probably chaos in Russia after that. So I don't think they're gonna take him out. But that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Um, so Lover of the Lord says it was all about getting nukes and get them out of the country and selling them to other people. Yeah, that could be it. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jacqueline. I will get some good rest. Thank you. Drops Family Garden says, I hope they just stop all the conflicts. No, there weren't a lot of EAMs today. There were only like 15 or 20. But the Russian buzzer was active yesterday, which is interesting. The Russian buzzer was active, and then they had really long emergency action messages on Sunday. There were like 200 character messages, which is pretty interesting. Mary Friend says, God bless you with a good night's sleep. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Jacqueline says, then again, we know Putin is not the best decision maker. Kate says he's an interesting character. Yeah, I mean, Prigozhin is like, in my opinion, he's like the Russian Trump, He's like the Russian Trump, in my opinion. He's very charismatic. And, just like how Trump used to say, we got to take out the swamp. And that's kind of what Prigozhin did, except the swamp was, Putin and Shoigu and all that. So he kind of reminds me of like a Russian Trump. Lorna says, I liked hearing the Russian buzzer. Yeah, the Russian buzzer is pretty, it's pretty creepy. It's pretty creepy. Let me see if I can play it again. I don't know if I still have it. I think I might have deleted it. Yeah, I think I might have deleted it. Let me see here. I'll play the Russian buzzer one more time. For those of you guys who didn't hear it yesterday, I'll play it again. There was a few messages from it, but I'll play some here. Let me see. It's pretty creepy, the Russian buzzer. Pretty creepy. So this is why they call it the Russian buzzer, because it has that buzzing noise. It constantly buzzes until they transmit. When they transmit something, it doesn't buzz, but otherwise it constantly buzzes. And it's probably similar to like our EAMs. These are coded messages that are transmitted to Russian nuclear forces, and they have a different priority level. But there were a few of them that went out yesterday, which is pretty interesting.
Николай, Женя, Татьяна, Иван. Николай, Женя, Татьяна, Иван.
They're saying like Nikolai, Tatiana, that's kind of like if we said like Alex, Bob, like for the letters,
74 312. Николай, Женя, Татьяна, Иван. Николай, Женя, Татьяна, Иван. 74 312. Роман, Анна, Зинаида, Борис, Иван, Елена, Николай, Мягкин, Елена. 51 76 35 59. Николай, Женя, Татьяна, Иван. Николай, Женя, Татьяна, Иван. 74 312. Роман, Анна, Зинаида, Борис, Иван, Елена, Николай, Мягкина, Елена. 51 76 35 59. Прием.
That was one of them. And then there's also the Russian woodpecker. You have the Russian buzzer, and then you have the Russian woodpecker. I made a mistake last night because I was tired, and I was explaining how the Russian buzzer interfered with communications during the Cold War. That wasn't the Russian buzzer. I was thinking of the Russian woodpecker, which was a giant over-the-horizon radar in Chernobyl. And so this radar was so powerful that it would interfere with all the comms in Europe, and it would make like this tapping noise on all the radio frequencies or various frequencies. It would make like a woodpecker type noise because the radar was so strong, But this is the Duga radar system. It's in Chernobyl. And it was one of the biggest over-the-horizon radars in the world ever. So these were used to pick up missile launches from the United States towards the Soviet Union in case of a nuclear war. Pretty crazy. Here's another Russian buzzer. Let me play another one for you guys. Oh, good night, Joe. I didn't even see you were in here. Good night, Joe. Thanks for tuning in.
Николай, Женя, Татьяна, Иван. Николай, Женя, Татьяна, Иван. 74 983. Дмитрий, Ольга, Константин, Ольга, Борис, Леонид, Елена, Федор. 05 73 26 83. Николай, Женя, Татьяна, Иван. Николай, Женя, Татьяна, Иван. 74 983. Дмитрий, Ольга, Константин, Ольга, Борис, Леонид, Елена, Федор. 05 73 26 83. Прием.
Yeah, there was like a Olya, Tatiana, Ivan. Yeah, and then they read out the numbers. So Project Blue Book. Yeah, Project Blue Book was interesting with the UFO investigations. What part of Pennsylvania did I move to? I live in north central Pennsylvania in the Allegheny Plateau. So I think I'm going to wind it down. I got some stuff I got to do here. And then I'll be back tomorrow, maybe live or maybe a video. I'm not 100% sure yet which one I'll do. But if I go live, it'll be in the evening again. Not sure what time, but probably sometime after 8 p.m. if I go live again. Thank you, Lorna, for tuning in and for moderating. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. K. Paul, thank you for all your support, K. Paul. I appreciate it. Jacqueline James, thank you. Joe Romanino, I didn't even know you were in here. Angela Dunn, thank you so much. Smoking Swamp, all my channel members, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So, Redneck Prepper. Yeah, I might actually make a separate video out of that T-14 just so people can watch it because I think it's so funny. Yeah, I did cut my grass. Yeah, I cut it. Yes, it's nice and cut. I won't have to cut it for a while, for probably another week or so. So yeah, I had to cut it because I didn't cut it for like three weeks. So I had to get it done because it was raining over the weekend, and it just grows like a weed. When it rains, the grass just grows like crazy because I don't have any trees around me. I'm like literally on a farm, so there's no trees. The farmer cut down all the trees for the crops, so the crops don't get affected, and so the sun is just beats down on that grass, and if there's just like a little bit of rain, it just grows so fast, you know. And then it starts to get so tall that I can't even cut it because it gets so thick. My mower bogs down. Um, all the Putin boy lovers believe this stuff about the T-14. Yeah, they do. Even all the Western analysts, all these so-called geopolitical experts. If you remember all these geopolitical experts like Stratfor, all these like big overeducated people with like multiple degrees and no practical experience in anything, just reading books. They were saying, "Oh yeah, the T-14 it's an end to NATO. NATO tanks are gonna be defeated now." And they were hyping that whole thing up. I remember it was like Stratfor was one of them. All these like overeducated analysts that probably never even seen a tank in their life, or even you know never even probably uh, you know never even driven one or anything, and they're somehow experts on tanks. And they were saying that the T-14 was going to revolutionize combat in the European theater or some BS. Lover of the Lord says, "I love you all, but as much as the Lord does." Thank you, lover of the Lord. I appreciate that. Thank you. I don't see a T-14 on the flight radar right now, but if I see any T-14s, I'll definitely let you guys know if they're flying around here somewhere in Ukraine. Or in Poland or somewhere. I'll let you know. So I'm going to wind it down, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Um, Someone says a new balloon in Montana. I'll have to check into that. I'll check into that, and if it's anything important, I'll make a video. Um, so so thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care. God bless, and don't forget the 3 P's: prepare, practice, and persevere.